There are nights when you lie awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, whispering to yourself, "How did everything fall apart so quickly?" There are days you sit in the car after work, hands gripping the steering wheel, but inside, you feel completely empty, and you wonder, do I have anything left? You're not alone. Every one of us has days like that. We live in a culture that teaches us to escape pain. Tired, go shopping. Sad, scroll until you're numb. Empty, fill the void with anything you can find. But the Stoics, thousands of years ago, saw through the illusion. Pain is not the enemy. It is the teacher. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who buried children, endured war sickness and betrayal, wrote, "The mind that pursues the good, whether it achieves it or not, is honored by its very pursuit." He didn't write that to inspire others. He wrote it to remind himself that even in tragedy, he could still keep his dignity by continuing to seek what is right. Epictetus, a slave whose leg was shattered, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He was stripped of almost everything, and yet he understood the final freedom no one can take is how you choose to respond. And Seneca, banished then, forced to die, left behind letters soaked with emotion. He knew sorrow does not destroy us. It opens the door to a new beginning. What they understood 2,000 years ago is the very same thing you're facing today. Look back at your own life. When did you grow the most? Was it when everything was easy? Or was it after sleepless nights, broken dreams, and wounds that forced you to change? Pain is like fire. It can burn you down, but it can also forge you. Metal becomes steel only in the furnace, and human beings are no different. So let me whisper this to you. You have survived every worst day of your life. That means you are far stronger than you think. Maybe right now you're standing in the middle of chaos, losing a job, losing love, losing the sense that anything makes sense. But pause for just a moment. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? What strength is it training in me? Because it's often in the emptiest moments that your soul opens wide, opens to courage, opens to compassion, opens to a strength you never thought you had. Do you see it? Life is not working against you. Life is training you, preparing you for a deeper, stronger version of yourself. The message of Stoicism still echoes through the centuries. Don't run from pain. Learn from it. Every loss is space cleared for rebirth. Every ending is an invitation to a beginning. Every tear is not weakness. It's proof you still carry strength inside. You cannot control every event, but you can always choose how you walk through it. So right now, whisper with me, I am not broken. I am breaking open. If these words reach you, write them down in the comments. Make it a promise to yourself. And if you want to walk alongside a community of people choosing growth over comfort, hit subscribe. The road won't be easy, but it will shape you into who you were born to become. And every journey begins with one unforgettable moment. More often than not, it begins on the worst day of your life, the day you thought you lost everything, but in truth, you had just uncovered a hidden treasure inside it. Part 1. The treasure. Disguised as your hardest day. There are mornings when you wake up believing the day will be ordinary, but by nightfall, your entire world has changed. Have you ever lived through a day like that? A day you wish you could erase from memory, yet it carves itself deeper than any moment of joy. And what if your worst day wasn't punishment at all, What if it was a gift in disguise? We're taught to believe that suffering is the enemy. But Epictetus, once a slave beaten until his leg was broken, said this: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it, that matters. The event itself is not what defines you. It's your response that does. Think back to the moment you lost something you thought you could never live without. Maybe it was a job, maybe a love you believed would last forever, maybe a dream you poured your entire soul into. In that moment, it felt like the ground beneath you collapsed. You sat there dizzy, whispering, 'Why me?' But if you look closer, you'll see. That was the moment the false layers were stripped away. That was the moment your true essence was revealed. Pain doesn't just take, it also gives. It leaves behind the truth about who you are. That you are stronger than you imagined. That strength doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from walking straight through it. I remember a friend who lost everything when his company collapsed. He sat in his old car in the parking lot sobbing like a child. Not soft tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that made his chest ache. And in that moment, he whispered to himself, "I'm still alive. I still have the power to begin again." And from that night of darkness, a new chapter began. Maybe that's your story too. Maybe you're sitting among the wreckage right now. Maybe the pain feels unbearable. But hear me, your worst day has not destroyed you. It has stripped away illusions. And what remains is your core, your essence. And from that essence, resilience is born. The quiet strength to rise again. You may not see it yet, but adversity is already shaping you into something stronger. Think about the people you admire most, the most inspiring stories you've ever heard. What do they all have in common? They walked through darkness, and they chose to rise. Without the night, how would you recognize the value of light? Without loss, how would you discover the power of growth like a seed buried in winter's cold soil? Only then can it break open and bloom in spring. So if you are living through your hardest day right now, try changing the question. Don't ask, "Why me?" Ask. Instead, what is this training in me? What is it trying to teach me? Because the truth is this: you are not broken. You are being forged. Life is not for you, and it is not against you. Life is training you. And the moment you realize that you are no longer a victim, you become a student of adversity. And adversity has always been a harsh but honest teacher. If these words reach you, leave yourself a reminder in the comments. My worst day revealed my best self. And if you want to walk this road with a community that chooses growth over comfort, hit subscribe. Not for me, for you, because life is short. Don't waste it running from pain. Let pain train you until you become the person you were born to be. And remember this: our hardest days often bring loss. The job, the love, even the identity we thought we could never live without. But the paradox is this: when you lose it all, you finally gain the chance to meet yourself, to rise from the ashes, to discover the truest version of who you really are. Part 2. How losing it all can lead you back to yourself. Have you ever lost something you thought you could never live without? A job that once defined you, a love you believed would last forever, a future you had carefully drawn out, gone in a single moment. And there you are, sitting in an empty room, heart heavy as stone, asking yourself, how do I go on from here? We fear loss. We fear losing the things that have wrapped themselves so tightly around our identity. But Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." He didn't write that in peace. He wrote it in grief after burying children, facing betrayal, enduring war. To remind himself, loss is not an ending. It is transformation. It is an invitation to return to yourself. I know, when you're in the storm, that may sound hollow. When you've lost your job, you don't think of freedom. You see unpaid bills. When love ends, you don't feel liberated. You feel the silence of an empty bed. But let me give you an image. Think of a tree in winter. On the outside, it looks dead, bare branches, lifeless bark. But deep in the roots, life is quietly gathering. The tree is not dead. It is preparing for spring. We are no different. Loss does not kill you. It strips away old layers, roles, and titles until you are face to face with your true self. And here's the paradox. When you hit rock bottom, you find solid ground. Rock bottom is solid. It's not comfortable, but it's firm enough to build again. I remember a friend once told me, "When I lost everything, I finally saw I had a choice. I was no longer chained to the expectations of others. I was free to define myself again." Maybe you're standing at that threshold too. An opportunity disguised as loss. It's hard to call loss a gift, but sometimes when everything is taken from you, that is when you discover your true self. Not the self tied to a business card, a job title, or a role, but the self you've always been deep at your core. Pain doesn't erase your worth. It reminds you that your worth was never tied to what you owned or who you were with. You are not just your job. You are not just your relationship. You are not your status, your title, or your possessions. You are bigger than all of that. So if you are living through your own winter right now, remember this. You are not dying. You are gathering life for a new spring. Loss is not a full stop. It is the beginning of a more honest, more free, more authentic journey. You don't need all the answers today. You just need to trust that beneath the ice, life is quietly rising. And one day soon, you will rise with it. Because in the end, loss does not take you away from yourself. It leads you back home. If these words speak to you, write this as a promise to yourself. Rock bottom is solid. I will rise again. And if you want to keep walking this path with me, the path of turning loss into rebirth, hit subscribe. Not to escape the pain, but to walk through it together. Because when everything falls apart, it isn't the end. It's the invitation to finally begin living as your truest self. And sometimes, that invitation comes disguised as the most painful thing of all, a dream you gave your whole heart to, but one that never came true. Part 3. The unexpected gift in dreams that don't come true. Do you remember the last time you gave your whole heart to a dream, only to watch it shatter? Maybe it was that rejection email for the job you poured all your hope into. Maybe it was the door that slammed shut, just as you thought you'd reached your goal. Or maybe it was a love you believed would last a lifetime, but it slipped away in silence. And when that dream collapsed, you asked yourself, did I waste it all? We often see broken dreams as failure. But Epictetus once said, don't demand that events happen as you wish. Wish that they happen exactly as they do. He didn't say that to make us give up. He said it to remind us what feels like an ending is often just a redirection. Think back to something you once missed out on. A job, a project, a door you kept knocking on but it never opened. In that moment, the pain was like a punch to the chest. You couldn't breathe. You were angry, bitter, disappointed in yourself. But years later, looking back, you realized if that door had opened, you might have walked into a life that wasn't yours to live. Failure is not wasted, because in chasing that dream, you learned skills. You built endurance. You made connections. You gained experience. All of it became your foundation, a hidden preparation for the door that truly belonged to you. I remember a friend who started a company. He gave it 3 years, every dollar he had, every ounce of his energy, every beat of his heart. And then within months, it collapsed. He thought he had lost everything, but those 3 years were not wasted. They taught him how to lead, how to take responsibility, how to fail without giving up. And all of that became the foundation for his next company, one that was more successful, more meaningful, and most importantly, truer to who he really was. Maybe your story is like that too. Maybe the dream you cried over was never truly yours. Maybe it was only preparation, a lesson to grow you, a training ground for the dream that still lies ahead. A broken dream is not proof you're unworthy. It's proof that life is rearranging itself, realigning you with a path that fits. Sometimes a door has to close before another can open, like a river meeting a giant rock. It doesn't stop. It changes direction. And often that new path is more beautiful than the one it first imagined. So, if you're sitting among the pieces of a shattered dream, remember this. You are not lost. You are being redirected. Don't call it failure. Call it redirection. Trust that every tear, every effort, every hour you gave was not meaningless. It was preparing you for a bigger, truer dream. If these words reach you, write this in the comments as a promise to yourself. My broken dreams are becoming better dreams. And if you want to keep walking this journey with me, the journey of turning failure into foundation, hit subscribe. Not for me, for you. Because life is short. Don't let one closed door convince you they're all locked. And when a door shuts, often what follows are the hardest battles. Not to destroy you, but to train you. Not because life made a mistake, but because those battles are a sacred part of your becoming. Part 4. The holiness hidden in your hardest battles. There are nights you lie in the dark, heart pounding, and you whisper to yourself, why do the hardest battles always find me? There are days you feel pushed beyond what any human should endure, and you think life must have made a mistake. But what if those battles weren't mistakes at all? What if they were a sacred part of your journey? We grow up in a world that tells us suffering is something to avoid, that sadness, failure, anxiety are signs of weakness. But the Stoics saw it differently. They had a phrase, amor fati, love your fate, not just accept it, love it, even the suffering. Sounds impossible, right? How could anyone love loss? How could anyone love pain? But think of it this way. Every challenge you survive is like an invisible medal, a certificate you only earn by walking through fire. You cannot guide the lost if you've never been lost yourself. You cannot comfort a broken heart if you've never felt your own crack in two. You cannot inspire resilience if you've never fallen to your knees and found the strength to rise again. That's why suffering is not meaningless. It is a tool of transformation. It does not come to destroy you. It comes to widen your heart, to deepen your understanding, to teach you something that smooth, easy joy never could. I remember a friend. She had just gone through a divorce after 20 years of marriage, and every time she cried, she whispered, "I should be stronger. I shouldn't be this weak." And I realized society had convinced her that tears were shameful, that pain was weakness. But the truth, those tears were proof she was alive. Those cracks were where the light slipped in. Those battles were what gave her depth, wisdom, compassion, things an easy life could never teach. Look at the lives of those who left their mark: leaders, teachers, healers. What do they all have in common? Not easy lives, but battles. They faced darkness, and instead of closing off, they let it shape them. They let it transform them. You too have that choice. Suffering can harden you, close you, make you bitter. Or it can open you, make you softer, more compassionate, wiser. You decide. The battle is not your fault. It is part of your sacred journey, placed in your path at the right time as a question: who will you become on the other side of this? So if you're in the storm right now, don't rush to call it a mistake. See it as a rite of passage, a sacred training ground, a fire shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Life is short. You cannot control when the storm comes, but you can always choose how you walk through it, closed or open, crushed or reborn. If you believe your struggle is not meaningless, write this in the comments: my struggle is sacred. And if you want to keep walking this path with me, this path of learning to love even fate itself, amor fati, then hit subscribe. Not to escape hardship, but to learn how to walk through it together. Because in the end, it is these sacred battles that carve the shape of who you truly are. And once you've lived through them, you'll discover another truth. That strength is not only in holding on, but in learning to let go. Because sometimes true freedom isn't found in control, but in release. Part 5. The freedom in letting go of control. Have you ever felt exhausted, simply because you were trying to control everything? You plan every detail. You predict every outcome. You hold on so tightly, as if you could keep the whole world from slipping away. But control is like sand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. And you sit there asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Why does everything keep falling apart? The truth is, most of our suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from our need to control what was never ours to control. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can control your thoughts. But you cannot control the weather. You cannot control your boss's decisions. You cannot control the choices of the person you love. You cannot control the sudden twists life throws at you. Yet so many of us live as if we're the master architects of the universe. We want everything to match the blueprint. We want people to behave exactly as we expect. We want life to follow the straight line we drew. But life is not a static design. It is a river. You can steer your boat, but you cannot command the water to stop flowing or to bend its course for you. When we fight for control, we only drain ourselves. But when we learn to let go, something unexpected happens. We feel lighter. We feel free. Letting go is not passive. It's not giving up. It's focusing on what we can do and accepting what we cannot change. I remember a friend who spent months preparing for a major project. He gave up sleep. He poured in all his energy. He believed it would change his life. But at the last minute, the project was canceled. he was crushed. Then a few days later, he realized, I can't control that decision, but I can control how I respond. So he rested. He rebuilt his energy, and he started a new project, one that eventually opened doors even better than the first. We all have stories like this. A door slams shut, a plan collapses, a person walks away. At first, it feels like we've lost everything. But when we stop resisting, when we stop blaming, we see something else. That empty space is the opening for something new. Letting go isn't easy. The mind whispers, if I just try harder, maybe I can fix it. But ask yourself, what's the cost of holding on? Is it worth losing your peace for something that was never in your control? The Stoics believed peace doesn't come from making the world obey us. Peace comes from accepting the world as it is. Acceptance is not surrender. Acceptance is choosing to fight only where you have true power in your thoughts, your attitude, your actions. So if you're tired from trying to control everything, try loosening your grip. Let go of the expectation that everyone will understand you. Let go of the illusion that your plans will never fail. Let go of the thought that you must run the whole universe. Remember this, you cannot stop the wind from blowing, but you can adjust your sails. You cannot stop the river, but you can learn to move with its current. Life is short. Don't waste it fighting battles you cannot win. Choose instead to focus on the one place you hold real power, your mind, your choices, your actions. If you're ready to take a small step today, write this in the comments as a promise to yourself, I choose peace over control. And if you want to keep walking this journey to discover inner peace, strength, and freedom, hit subscribe. Not for me, for you. Because only when you learn to let go, do you finally discover what it means to be free. And once you've learned the art of letting go, there's another quiet strength waiting to be practiced. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It teaches you how to stand steady in the long seasons of waiting. That is part 6, the quiet strength of patience. Have you ever waited for something that felt like it would never come? A text, an opportunity, a door you hoped would finally open. You plant the seed, you water it, but day after day, the soil stays silent, and you whisper to yourself, what did I do wrong? Why hasn't it sprouted? Isn't life often the same way? We live in a world addicted to speed. Texts answered in seconds, packages delivered overnight, results expected the moment we make the effort. But the Stoics remind us, patience is a quiet form of strength. Seneca once wrote, time heals what reason cannot, meaning there are things you simply cannot force. You can only wait. Wait for the wound to close. Wait for the pain to soften. Wait for the seed to quietly split open in the dark. Patience is not weakness. It is power. Because it demands you endure the slow pace of growth without giving up. It demands you trust in what you cannot yet see. I think of a friend who once lost his job. For months, he felt useless. Worry hung over him every single day. He sent out resumes, but no one called back. He nearly broke. But instead of panicking, he gave himself permission to wait. He learned new skills. He spent time with his family. And months later, an opportunity came better, truer, more aligned with who he really was. Looking back, he said, if I hadn't been patient, I would have settled for something that wasn't meant for me. Patience teaches us that not everything needs to be fast. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Some things only bloom when their season arrives. Think of winter. From the outside, the trees look dead, but deep within, life is still moving. Sap still flows. Roots grow deeper into the earth, and when spring comes, they burst forth stronger than ever. Your life works the same way. Maybe right now you feel stuck, but the truth is you're storing strength. Every day of waiting, every moment of patience, it's all deepening your foundation. Patience is like a muscle. It doesn't grow in comfort. It grows through challenge, through slowness, through the days you wanted to quit but stayed the course. So next time you find yourself waiting, remember, patience is not wasted. It's the quiet strength that keeps you standing through the journey. It turns today's pain into tomorrow's wisdom. Time is short. You can't control the pace of every process, but you can choose to believe this. Every moment of waiting has meaning. If you believe that, write it in the comments as a promise to yourself. Patience is my quiet strength. And if you want to keep learning how to turn trials into strength, hit subscribe. Not to fill time, but to walk together, learning how to live slower, deeper, stronger. Because sometimes real strength isn't about rushing forward. It's about standing steady, patient, and trusting that spring will come. And when you've learned patience, you'll see another truth. Strength isn't found only in willpower or resilience. It also lives in the heart's ability to feel deeply. In the sensitivity the world often mistakes as weakness, but in reality hides an extraordinary kind of power. Part 7. The hidden strength in feeling deeply. Have you ever heard someone say to you, "Don't be so sensitive. Stop overthinking. Toughen up." And in that moment you wondered, am I really weak? Is my heart too fragile? But what if your sensitivity isn't a burden at all? What if it's a rare gift? We live in a culture that glorifies coldness, a world that praises logic while treating the heart as a problem. They tell us, be strong, hide your feelings, detach from what stirs you. But here's the truth. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who endured exile, loss, and even a forced death, once wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Those words didn't come from stone. They came from a heart that had been broken, a heart that still had the courage to feel, to write, to share. The Stoics were not statues. They were human. They felt deeply, but they learned not to drown in those feelings. There's a difference. To feel deeply, to be consumed by emotion. One is a gift. The other is a chain. When you are sensitive, you carry an inner radar. You see colors others miss. You hear the sadness hiding behind a smile. You notice beauty where others just glance and move on. That is not weakness. That is connection. That is intuition. That is a form of inner wisdom no textbook can teach. Think back to a moment when you cried over something small. A song, a story, an embrace after years apart. Those tears didn't make you less. They proved you are alive, that you still feel, that your heart still moves. And the world needs people like you. We need those who can sense the exhaustion behind a polite smile. We need those who notice when a soul is slipping quietly into silence. We need hearts deep enough to turn pain into compassion, and compassion into action. I once met a woman often teased for being too sensitive. She cried easily. She worried often. She was mocked for it. But she was also the first to notice when a colleague pulled away. The only one who stayed late to ask, "Are you okay?" And because of that one question, a life was saved from despair. So your sensitivity is not a weakness. It is a quiet kind of strength, the strength of empathy, the strength of love, the strength of connection, deep, human, real. If someone ever made you feel ashamed of your tender heart, stop apologizing. Don't silence the whisper within you, because your sensitivity is a gift that lets you see what others overlook. A gift that reaches places logic will never touch. Life is short. Don't waste it trying to be a cold wall. Be a door, a place where emotions can pass through, a place where love and connection can be shared. If you believe your sensitivity is a gift, not a burden, write it in the comments as a promise to yourself. My sensitivity is my strength, not my weakness. And if you want to keep walking this journey, learning to turn the depth of your heart into power, hit subscribe, not to escape your feelings, but to embrace them, to use them to live a life that is real and meaningful. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is not to hide your feelings, but to feel them all and still keep walking forward. And when you find the courage to feel deeply, another question will rise. Do you also have the courage to live authentically? Part 8. The courage to live authentically. Have you ever sat at a party, smiling, nodding, laughing at the right moments, while inside you wanted to scream? Have you ever said, "I'm fine," when your heart was quietly breaking? Have you ever done everything just to please others? And then asked yourself, when will I finally get to live as me? We grow up in a world that teaches us to adapt. As children, we learn how to behave to be loved, to avoid being abandoned, to make others proud. And slowly, that mask fuses to our skin, so tight that sometimes we forget what our real face looks like. Stoicism reminds us to live authentically is one of the highest forms of courage, because it often goes against the expectations of the crowd. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. To grow, you must accept that others may not understand, that they may even laugh." Living authentically is not rebellion. It is honesty with your own nature, even if that honesty makes you different. I remember a friend who worked in finance. Every morning he tightened his tie, walked into a sleek office, good income, good reputation. But he told me, "Every morning I wake up, I feel like I'm wearing clothes that don't belong to me." One day he left it all behind, to become a music teacher, to return to what he had loved since childhood. On the outside, people thought he was crazy, but for the first time in years, he exhaled and whispered, "Now, I'm living true." So let me ask you, how many times have you chosen approval over authenticity? How many times have you silenced your inner voice because it didn't fit the mold? How many times have you worn the mask just to survive another day? To live true requires courage, because it comes with a price. You may lose the support of some. You may face criticism. You may be misunderstood. But what do you gain? You gain yourself. And that is the greatest freedom. When you live authentically, you don't have to remember which mask you wore today. You don't have to fear being found out. You don't have to run from yourself. You breathe clean. You laugh without forcing it. You cry without shame. And most of all, you leave a real mark on this world, not the mark of a role you played, but the mark of you. The Stoics understood this. The approval of the crowd is fragile, but honesty with yourself is eternal. People can change their opinion about you at any moment, but if you lose yourself, what remains? The greatest courage is not facing the world outside. It's facing the world within, taking off the mask, looking straight at your real face with every scar, every fear, and every light inside of it. Life is short. You don't have time to live someone else's version of you. You have only one chance to live in alignment with your true self. If you're ready, write it down in the comments as a promise to yourself. I choose authenticity over approval. And if you want to walk this journey with me, with a community that dares to live true, live deep, live whole, hit subscribe. Not for me, but for you. Because in the end, the world doesn't need another perfect copy. The world needs you, the real you. And once you dare to live authentically, another question will rise. Do you have the courage to begin again, to write a new chapter as your truest self? That is the bravery of starting over. Part 9. The bravery it takes to begin again. Have you ever stood still, holding a cardboard box as you walked out of an office, realizing the career you clung to for years had ended? Have you ever sat alone in an empty house after a breakup and felt like your entire future had just collapsed? Have you ever stared at a plan you built with all your heart, only to watch it crumble overnight? And in that moment, you whispered to yourself, starting over, at this age, is it too late? Society often whispers that starting over means failure, that you've wasted time, that you've fallen behind while others keep moving forward. But here's the truth. Starting over is not failure. It's evolution. It's proof that you are brave enough to choose growth, instead of staying stuck in a life that no longer fits. Seneca once wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it. Life is long enough if you choose to live it fully." The question isn't about the years behind you. The question is, will you dare to live true, starting today? Starting over doesn't erase your past. It carries it forward. Every fall becomes a lesson. Every mistake becomes a brick. Every loss becomes soil where something new can grow. Picture yourself building a house. If the old foundation cracks, you have two choices: patch it up, or tear it down and rebuild from the ground up. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it takes time. But only then will you have a home strong enough to shelter the future. I remember a woman who spent 20 years as a lawyer, high income, solid reputation, but deep inside, she felt like she was living a borrowed life. At 50, she walked away. She became an elementary school teacher. To outsiders, she looked reckless. Some even said she's lost her mind. But for the first time in decades, she laughed with her whole being. She told me, "This isn't failure. This is the first time I've truly lived." You see, beginning again takes a rare kind of courage. It asks you to put growth above comfort, authenticity above approval, potential above safety. And maybe right now, you're standing at that same crossroads. A job that drains you, a relationship that's only routine, a version of you that others love, but you don't. The question is, do you have the courage to begin again? Not to deny your past, but to honor it by using everything you've learned to build a new life, a truer life, a more honest life. Never confuse beginning again with failure. Beginning again is the bravest declaration you can make. I refuse to just exist. I choose to live true. Life is short. You can choose comfort, but the price will be a lifetime of regret. Or you can choose courage and step into a journey where you finally belong. If you're ready, write it in the comments as a promise to yourself. I choose growth over comfort. I choose authenticity over approval. And if you want to walk this road with me, this journey of rediscovering courage and inner strength, hit subscribe. Not for me, but for you. Because sometimes, a new beginning isn't just chapter 2. It's the real book you were born to write. And then comes the next question. When you write the book of your life, what legacy do you truly want to leave? Not just outward success, but an inner legacy, a legacy of peace. Part 10. The legacy of inner peace. Have you ever wondered, when your last day comes, what will you really leave behind? A house, a bank account, a title on a business card, or will it be something quieter, the way people felt when they were near you? What if the greatest legacy of a life well lived is not outward victories, but inner peace? The Stoics taught that true achievement doesn't lie in money, status, or power. It lies in the ability to remain steady in the storm. The Greeks had a word for it, ataraxia, inner tranquility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Happiness doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from the way you think about them. This world will always be chaotic. There will always be economic downturns. There will always be people who disappoint you. There will always be events outside your control. You can't stop the storm, but you can learn to stand tall in the middle of it. And that is the real victory. I once met a man who had lost almost everything: his job, his home, his marriage. But when I sat across from him, what struck me wasn't the loss. It was the calm in his eyes. He said, "I can't control what left me, but I can control how I live from here." And from that peace, he rebuilt his life. With fewer possessions, but richer in joy and in genuine connection. That is the strength of an anchored soul. When your heart is steady, the waves can't drag you away. You become a safe harbor for yourself and for those around you. Think about the people who left a mark on your life. They may not have been the richest or the most famous or the most powerful, but what did they leave you with? Maybe it was the peace you felt in their presence, the way they truly listened, the warmth of their kindness, the wisdom in their silence. That is the real legacy, not what's carved on a headstone, but how their presence still lives on in memory and in the hearts they touched. You and I, we can leave that legacy too, not through a fortune, not through fame, but by learning to plant peace in our thoughts, in our actions, in every small conversation, every single day. The greatest accomplishment isn't climbing to the top. It's discovering peace within yourself and turning that peace into a gift for those who follow. Life is short. Wealth, status, power, they all fade. But peace, wisdom, compassion, if you plant them in others, they will outlive you. If you believe this, write it now in the comments as your promise. My true legacy is inner peace. And if you want to keep walking this path, the path of building inner strength and leaving behind peace, hit subscribe. Not for me, but for you, and for those who will remember you, not for how much you achieved, but for how deeply you lived. Because in the end, the most beautiful legacy is not what we leave behind on the outside. It's the peace we leave inside the hearts of others. Have you ever looked in the mirror after a long day, your eyes red, your chest heavy, and whispered, "Have I broken?" Have you ever believed that tears mean weakness? What if I told you? Tears are not a sign you're breaking down. They're proof that you're breaking open. The Stoics have whispered this truth for thousands of years. We are not victims of life. We are its students. Every loss is not an ending. It is a clearing, a space for something new to enter. Every ending is not a sentence. It is a doorway to a beginning. Epictetus once said, "We are like actors in a play. We don't get to choose our roles, but we can choose how we perform them." You don't choose your circumstances. You don't choose whether tragedy or fortune comes your way, but you always choose how you step onto life's stage, with courage, with dignity, with an open heart. Think back to your darkest days, the ones you thought you couldn't survive, yet you're still here, still breathing, still moving forward. What does that mean? It means you are stronger than you've ever believed. It means every storm you've endured hasn't destroyed you, it has trained you. Maybe you're thinking, but I've lost too much. I've hurt too much. I understand. But look closer. Those very losses have carved out the space for you to find your truest self again. Those very wounds have taught you how to empathize, how to love, how to stand beside someone else in their breaking. Your tears are not proof of weakness. They are proof that you are alive, that you still feel, that you are still open to this life. And sometimes, to stay open is the bravest act of all. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So why chain yourself to the thought that hardship equals failure? Instead, see each struggle as training, a rehearsal for the stronger self waiting to emerge." So if you're in the middle of a storm right now, remember this. You are not broken. You are breaking open. Every loss is space for rebirth. Every ending is a doorway. Every tear is evidence of a power within you, quiet, unshakable, waiting to shine. Life is short. Don't waste it running from challenges. Let them train you. Let your wounds be the cracks where light gets in. If these words touch you, write this in the comments as your promise to yourself, I am not broken, I am breaking open. And if you want to walk alongside a community learning how to turn pain into power, hit subscribe. Not for me, but for you, and for the extraordinary self within you, waiting to be revealed. Because in the end, we are not here just to exist. We are here to grow, to break open, and to leave behind a legacy of courage and of peace.